Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of St. Paul's Letters to America. I am your host, Ray Gerard, and this is the program where each week we ask, what if St. Paul were alive today? What if he were here to write a letter to Americans? Wouldn't that be something? What would he tell us if he were alive in this particular year, in the 21st century, able to see what was going on in our society and our world? What would he tell us? And we examine that question. We ponder and consider that question, and we do that with a certain motto always in mind. No matter what we discuss, no matter whom we discuss, we always bear a certain motto in mind. Love and kindness. Love first. And through the light of truth. And we think that we can find that truth in the writings of St. Paul. And the reason for that is because truth is timeless. It doesn't change from place to place or year to year, and always. Otherwise, it's not truth. And since somebody who read, studied, followed for generations, for centuries, certainly somebody who has lasted that long is tied into something that is, in fact, true, something that doesn't, in fact, change, where the goodness of it doesn't change from year to year or place to place. So today, what are we going to talk about? Well, I have a question for you. The question we're going to start with is, do you believe in the devil? Do you believe in the devil? There is a priest by the name of Louis Camelli who wrote a book called The Devil You Don't Know. And the reason he wrote the book is because he was asked that same question. And what he found was, like, a lot of people, they don't believe in the devil. They don't believe that the devil exists. As a matter of fact, when he's asked that question about, do you believe in the devil, he always says no. As a matter of fact, he says no. But the reason why he says no is, he says, I don't believe in the devil. I believe in Jesus Christ. He says, I reject the devil. He quotes the baptismal liturgy, where when everybody is brought into the church, either the person or the parents are asked, do you reject Satan? Do you reject him? Not to believe in him. There's another book that was written by a priest. This one is called A Notebook on the Devil and Exorcism. Now, this is sort of like an uncomfortable topic, isn't it? We don't like talking about the devil and exorcism and things of that nature. They're regarded largely in our society today with quizzical looks. You really don't believe in that, do you? As a matter of fact, we're going to be explaining, probably making reference to a story, a news story on television, where that was precisely the attitude of a certain reporter when he was discussing something with a Catholic bishop. But in any event, there's this book that I'm referring to was written by a Father Dominic Szymanski. It was written in 1944, published after his death. These papers were found, the manuscript for this book was found among his papers in a trunk with his other personal belongings. And so it was published after his death. Well, who was Father Dominic Szymanski? Well, he happened to be the founder of a place called Marytown. This place is one that I'm familiar with. It is located northwest of Chicago. It is a place where perpetual Eucharistic adoration has been practiced for over 100 years. It was run by a different order originally, but now it's run by the Franciscans. It contains a shrine, the national shrine in the United States, to St. Maximilian Kolbe, died at the hands of the Nazis in a concentration camp as part of the Holocaust. But I'm familiar with this particular place because I did practice adoration there for about, well, let's see. Well, for several years I practiced adoration there, and it led me to continue practicing adoration every place that I've lived since. But he describes a situation one particular night in the chapel where adoration is practiced there. And he says, "The shades of evening were darkening as I stepped into the rear of the monastic chapel. Long shadows on the floor and the high pillars of the vaulted ceiling cast an eerie glow about the almost empty nave, while the only lights, the 2 candles on the altar, threw the choir stalls into dim relief. I could see the 60 monks ready for the last chant of their long day. In the center of the choir, a cleric, having asked the blessing of the superior, in a clear voice, sounded the church's perennial warning. Brothers, be sober and watch well. The devil, who is your enemy, goes about roaring like a lion to find his prey, but you, grounded in the faith, must face him boldly." Now, this was said at the end of every day, so why on this particular night did it strike Father Szymanski so differently? He says that earlier that day, he had been trying to convince a friend of his, an educated Catholic, of the reality of the devil. This friend would not acknowledge the devil, and if you don't acknowledge the devil, then there's a serious problem that awaits. Father Szymanski writes, "Show the devil to Christian souls as he really is, and his ugliness will not attract them. Hide the devil, and in ignorance they will follow him. The devil has been hidden too long." On this program today, we're going to talk about precisely that, how the devil has been hidden, how people regard the devil or the existence of the devil, the reality of the devil, so cavalierly, and in doing so, expose themselves to risk. If the devil is in fact real, then playing fast and loose with the devil will necessarily, given the nature of the devil, involve risk. And are we supposed to believe? Well, perhaps we should believe that, the devil is not real. It's superstitious hogwash that people from generations past, impressionable people who didn't have the benefits of modern science, chose to believe in. Whereas today, now we don't have to bother with such things. Well, of course, Christ spoke about the devil, did he not? The church has believed in the devil for 2,000 years, has it not? Are we now all of a sudden to cast all of that aside because what the saints told us about, what the saints experienced, the revelations, the mystical experiences that the saints had with the devil, all untrue? We're supposed to cast all that aside. There was a saint one time I read about who was passing by. He was being plagued by the devil as he walked the corridors in a monastery. And at one point, this devil, as he was walking, this devil was with him. And at one point, the devil shrieked and groaned. And why? Because they were passing the place where the confessional booths were located. And the devil said, "I hate that place. I hate that place more than anything else." I forget the saint who told me that story, but in any event, we're supposed to cast all of that aside. I can relate with Father Szymanski, in the chapel, in that chapel with the vaulted ceiling and the pillars high and the glow of just some very faint light. Most of the hours I spent in adoration in that chapel, I spent where it was similarly lit in a dim fashion. And in the presence of the Eucharist, things do become clearer to you, as it no doubt did for Father Szymanski on that particular night. But in our culture today, no, we're smarter than that. We don't believe in any of that. And we don't heed a warning from St. Paul. Almost 2,000 years ago, he wrote, and if he was here in America, he would write the same thing today. Finally, Draw your strength from the Lord and from his mighty power. Put on the armor of God so that you may be able to stand firm against the tactics of the devil. For our struggle is not with flesh and blood, but with principalities, with the powers, with the world rulers of this present darkness, with the evil spirits in the heavens. Therefore, put on the armor of God that you may be able to resist on the evil day, and having done everything, to hold your ground. So stand fast with your loins girded in truth, clothed with righteousness as a breastplate, and your feet shod in readiness for the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, hold faith as a shield to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, with all prayer and supplication. Pray at every opportunity in the Spirit. To that end, be watchful with all perseverance and supplication for all the holy ones and also for me, that speech may be given me to open my mouth, to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador of chains, so that I may have the courage to speak as I must. Would we listen to those words from St. Paul today? They are harsh words. They're dramatic words, and to our modern consciousness, melodramatic words. The armor of God, the word of your sword, carrying a sword, which is the word of God, putting on a breastplate and all of that. Full, high blown, fancy language, just too dramatic. I mean, we're exaggerating, we're imagining that none of this is real. None of this has to be feared. Well, that apparently, so who's right? St. Paul? Should we regard this with all the seriousness that St. Paul does? Or our modern culture? Who's right? Well, the folks at Disney, they think they have the answer. There's a new program, a new cartoon that started this past January called The Owl House. The Disney Channel. The perhaps, quintessential home for kids to, hear stories, fairy tales and stories fit for young minds. The Disney Channel. Well, apparently this particular television series is all about a self-assured teenage girl called Luz. And she is trying to make do in another realm where humans are not well liked. We'll start with that. You've got a story dealing with a place where humans are not well liked. Anyways, she disguises herself in order to fit in there. She has to disguise her humanity in order to fit in. And it centers around, the place where it centers around is called Demon Town. Demon Town. This is the scene for a Disney show, Demon Town. Anyways, there's a character called Ida, the Owl Lady. She's the most powerful witch. And Luz, our protagonist, declares, someday I'm going to be just like her. Okay. So, witches, warlocks, demons. There have been stories, kids' stories about this before. No big deal, right? Well, yeah, are we imposing onto this particular program some negative effects or negative intents when really none is there? Maybe it's just an innocent program. Who are we to be, critical of this program? Well, how about if you go to the program's originators themselves? A voice actor, one of the people who does voice narration in the program, is a fellow by the name of Alex Hirsch. And he told Newsweek.com that, quote, the original pitch for the show was, quote, girl hangs out with witch in hell, close quote. That was the pitch. Girl hangs out with witch in hell. Oh, okay, that's nice. To do a children's program about hell. Oh, what are we gonna take from this? The art director for the show, a person by the name of Ricky Kameda, explained that when the show's creator, Dana Terrace, first approached him, she said that, quote, "We're trying to make this demon realm a part of Disney," close quote. We are actively trying to make the demon realm part of Disney. One might ask why. I mean, what can you gain from doing programs about the demon realm? This is, devils, demons, by anybody's definition, it's about evil. It is about evil. Now, maybe you're doing a program just to reject the evil, but it's dangerous, and you got to be careful. You got to be sure that you don't create even the smallest impression that anything about the evilness or about hell is acceptable. You have to be careful about that, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want to be careful not to instill favorable messages about evil to young minds? Anyways, Cometa continues, we really wanted to make this demon realm feel like home. The demon realm feel like home. Well, that's nice. So if there's evilness that's associated with demons, we're going to make that feel home-like. Now, you could say, well, perhaps they don't do that. But that is what's going on in our culture today. We are making the demons and the devils almost seem benevolent. Now, you think I exaggerate. I do not. And I can prove it to you. There's another instance, another story recently came up. There's a new book for young children. You can find it at Walmart, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It is called A Children's Book of Demons. Again, lighthearted stuff. This one's written by a fellow by the name of Aaron. I'm not even going to mention his name. Why give him the publicity? Anyways, he's an occultist himself. This book is described in Publishers Weekly as playful. From the Amazon website, you can read, quote, "Don't want to take out the trash tonight? Maybe you're swimming in homework. Perhaps that big bully is being a real drag. Well, grab your colored pencils and sigil drawing skills and dial up some demons. This paranormal parody is filled to the brim with funny spirits, more silly than scary." So we're going to make this all seem acceptable, not to be feared, something you can take lightly, just easy stuff. So when I said before that if you're going to deal with the demons and such, you got to be careful to make sure that you only deal with it in a negative light, right? Because otherwise, why would we want anybody to think that anything that has, evil about it is acceptable or good or benevolent? We'll get into, there's a show on TV called Lucifer. Originally came out on Fox for 3 seasons, then they canceled it. Then there was a public outcry against the cancellation of this show called Lucifer. So Netflix picked it up. They ran it for a couple more years. They were going to cancel it after season 5. And again, there's a public outcry, and reports are surfacing lately that contracts are being signed for season 6 because the public has demanded the return of the show called Lucifer. What's the show about? Well, the show's about a devil who's in hell, but he gets bored with hell. So he comes to Los Angeles, and he runs a nightclub. And he ends up partnering with the local police. As a matter of fact, he falls in love with a police detective. They have some kind of a loving relationship. Also, although he also pays for psychotherapy sessions with sex. So I guess you could question how much he loves the police detective. But in any event, they solve crimes together. How good! The benevolent devil comes out of hell, and solves crimes. Works with the local police, cooperates with the local police. Are we not downplaying anything fearful about the devil? Any reason to fear the devil? Are we not making the devil seem normal, acceptable, just like somebody in everyday life, actually admirable. He helps, he's benevolent, helps solve crimes. The benevolent devil. We have other things. For example, you find all these devil references in our culture and our society today. There was a movie that came out a couple of years ago called The Black Mass. The Black Mass. Now, it's not about the devil. The title is just simply a metaphor. The title is actually about Whitey Bulger, a mobster, who ended up cooperating with the FBI. And so the metaphor is supposed to poke fun at and mock the FBI for basically making a deal with the devil, basically having this agreement and working side by side with this Whitey Bulger. But in any event, Black Mass, Black Mass, title of a movie, Lucifer, title of a program for 6 years running. You've got video games. We've all heard about the video games that promote so much violence and such. There's one called Black Masses. And this one, ostensibly, is about fighting the devil. When you play this game, you are on an island which is populated by hundreds of thousands of possessed inhabitants, and your job is to overcome the terror and escape. So, that one at least is, you're trying to. I mean, that one at least you're trying. You're trying to escape the devil. So it's not saying that the devil is not something to be feared, but it is something to be feared. But nevertheless, there's a lot of horrific killing and such in it. But again, a reference to Black Mass. It's just these references, these words, these names, they seem to abound in our culture more and more and more. We're finding all of these references to the devil and things of that nature. As a matter of fact, there was an article in Bustle magazine, or Bustle on the website Bustle. I guess it's a website for young women. Anyways, it was talking about the movie season of 2018. And it started out by saying, quote, Satan has had a hell of a year, close quote. It named about half a dozen horror films, including The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, then it also said there's more to come, a lot more movies of the same genre. And it also said, quote, Satan is becoming the season's hottest breakout star. How about that? Satan is becoming the hottest breakout star. It quoted a director who said there's something appealing in thinking about elemental evil. Now, she couched it in terms of when things in society are going bad, or there are problems that seem to surround, that there's something, in those circumstances, there's something appealing in thinking about elemental evil. Really? Something appealing about that? What in the world would be appealing about that? Although Satan in modern movies is different. This article in Bustle talks about the fact that the movies today are vastly different from, say, the movies of the 1970s. The movies in the 1970s, for example, like Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, things of that nature. These were movies where the devil was cast as something overpowering, something to be feared. He was, in fact, the evil devil that we're used to thinking about, as opposed to the devil of today. And the devil of today, according to this article in Bustle, is often portrayed as a whiny man baby. A whiny man baby. So that he's not all powerful. He's not a real danger. He's something to be ridiculed, thought lightly. I mean, he's just whiny. And instead of being this dominating self, often enough he has to engage in trickery rather than sheer power. And on occasion, the article says, quote, he's even pathetic. Well, yes, that is what we're finding out, isn't it? And this particular article does refer to the TV program Lucifer. It says, Satan's a good guy who helps the police for God's sake, it says. There's the writer of the article also says that, it's not the writer of the article. It's the author. It's an author by the name of Kristen Solis. She writes a book called Witches, Sluts, Feminists, conjuring the sex positive. And she says, quote, these new visions of Satan, political moment, in the sense that it's the status quo and corrupt system of powers we should fear, not, quote, the other. Other is a capitalized term, I suppose, as opposed to saying the evil one. You say the other. But anyways, so we have to fear corrupt systems of power, not the evil one, not the other. Really? Really? Corrupt systems of power can harm us where? On this earth, in this life? Is there such a thing as life after death? Is there God? Was there a Christ who lived, died, and rose from the dead? Was that a historical fact, or is it not? So our danger, do we have no danger to our eternal soul? No, we have to worry about the status quo and corrupt systems of power. Where is our thinking? Where is our thinking today? We have no. Paul often tells people, tells us, keep your eyes fixed on heaven. Think of what is above, not of what is on earth. But we apparently don't seem to be doing that. The author of the article then talks about the fact that, shows about Satan offer us more than just a fantasy, but it gives us a way to analyze social change. They give us space to work through our hopes and fears about that change. It's all about social change. It's the power, the corrupt systems in our society today. That's what we need to focus on. But don't worry about the devil. Don't think about the devil. Don't believe in evil. Don't believe that there was any spirit of evil that perpetrated or fomented or made possible the Holocaust. Don't even think about that. No, that was all man-made. There are no evil forces in the world today. None. Yeah, we don't have to worry about it. Let's see. Let's see. What else do we got? Oh, well, here's the interesting thing to note. That this article in Bustle notes that today's heroines fight back against the devil and often win. This is these stories about the devil now. Instead of having women that were vulnerable and weak and potentially overpowered by a devil, now there are women heroines who are fighting back and often win. And then, quote, even in cases where women decide to throw their lot with the Dark Lord, like Aunt Zelda on Sabrina, or in films like Hereditary and The Witch. So three examples of this happening. Quote, continuing with the quote, they're not passive vessels who have no choice in the matter. They've joined up with the devil because they like what he's selling, close quote. Well, now we should applaud ourselves for that. Isn't that great? We can pat ourselves on the back because now we have given to ourselves, we have, just acquired for ourselves the power, to devil and to go ahead and out of our own volition sign up with him. Well, isn't that a great accomplishment? I mean, why would anybody actually write this? Why would people make films that actually celebrate this? The simple reason is they don't believe that the devil is real. A director of one of these movies says, quote, we decide if we want to be part of the cult, the ritual, etc., and how we want to use it to our advantage, close quote. We're making deals with the devil and celebrating them. Yeah, 2018 was a hell of a year. Now, also, the director of this movie's Sabrina talked about the fact that they had actual practicing pagans on staff, and they did that because they wanted to ensure that the show, or is it a movie? Ensured that the show is, quote, respectful about occult beliefs. Of course, respectful about occult beliefs. Well, of course, we have to respect them. I mean, it's a religion like any other, right? No difference. Just difference between good and evil, but what difference is there in that? Quoting still, some cast members had protective crystals hidden in their wardrobe. This would have been unimaginable on a 70s film set. I had folks ask me if I was concerned about welcoming any unwanted energy and spirits into the set. I wasn't nervous about that myself because I wanted to be as respectful as possible to the satanic belief and that energy that surrounds it. So even if she's not sure of the satanic belief, even if she's not sure if it's real or if it really exists, what does she imagine it to be? Is it evil? Why in the world would she then ever want to be respectful of it and the energy of that kind of a belief and the energy that surrounds it? Does she even listen to what she's saying? Quoting still, we even had authentic satanic items and ritual pieces on set. I thought they were actually protecting us, not harming us. I tried to keep a very open mind. End of quote. It's hard to... They were protecting... She thought that they were protecting them. Father Szymanski said that if you show the devil in his true light, the Christian, the normal, or any normal person will reject that ugly image. If you show the devil as he really is, but if you disguise him, then the ignorant will accept him. Is that not what we're talking about? If we imagine for a moment the possibility that the devil is real, and imagine for a moment what the devil is, evil unlimited, how can people say the things that they're saying? And they're making movies and TV programs that shape our culture. The article ends with a quote from a historian on such films, and he says, that many of these films will continue to be tired, guilt-inducing possession exorcism dramas that often center on young women. Or they can be liberating stories of the same young women breaking various taboos and literally raising hell. I hope we keep telling the latter, close quote. Yes, let's celebrate the fact that we have women who, of their own volition, decide to make pacts with the devil. It leaves, as is evident from my inability to find words, it does leave one speechless. All right, what more do we have more? Oh, we do have more. We have more. I mean, we started this program. Do you believe in the devil? And of course, it's not that we shouldn't believe in him, but we should believe in the existence. We should acknowledge or be aware of the existence of the devil and believe in Jesus Christ. If we're to follow the recommendations of St. Paul, if the recommendations of St. Paul are grounded in truth, if the recommendations, the words and the thoughts, the inspirations of St. Paul contain things that do in fact span the test of time, that because they are real. If we're to believe any of that, if we're to follow any of that, then we are to regard the devil as real, and we would naturally question what in the world is going on in our society today. These people are making these movies and these TV programs with this kind of thinking, and unless you're a fan, a movie-making fan, and you read articles like this, do you really know? Do you ever really know what the thinking is in the directors and the screenwriters and the people who make these movies? And if you did know, would you want to accept this? Or, are you just being led into regarding the devil as innocuous, as even benevolent? Well, there's a person who has a different view of this sort of thing. There's a man by the name of Zachary King, and he will tell you that the devil is very real. He began. Now we've talked about games, video games, movies, and the like. That we got children's books. Now we got a cartoon series, things like that, and they're just playful, as Publishers Weekly says. They're more silly than scary, as the Amazon website will tell you. Nothing to be worried about. Well, he began as a youngster at age 12 playing Dungeons and Dragons. And he apparently had while some people may not necessarily be so as affected as he was by this particular type of game, he was affected by it. He ended up joining a cult and a coven. And about age 18, he joined the World Church of Satan. And within several years' time, he attained the position known as High Wizard. And he says it was their job to travel around the world doing spells that people want you to do. He says, now when I say people, I mean rock stars, movie stars, political figures, rich people. How about that? People that shape our culture and our society. Anyways, wizard for about 10 or 12 years and did this type of thing in 10 or 12 years. Besides that, by the way, when he was 14, one of the things he did is he was on his way up. He participated in a sex party where in this party were between the ages of 12 and 15. There was a single female member over 18. And the purpose of this sex party was to get her pregnant so that 9 months later she could have an abortion. And he asked, as a boy of 14, whether that's legal. And they said, "Oh yeah, it's legal." They said it's legal, and they kept referring to it as a baby. There was no reference to a fetus or a clump of cells. The people in this devil's cult, the satanic group, kept referring to it as a baby. In any event, he participated in his first actual abortion, where he had to get blood on his hands. That was the idea. At age 15, and then after that, he prior to being High Wizard, he participated in five what they call these ritualistic abortions. And after becoming High Wizard, he did 141 more. Now, one of them done at a farmhouse, there was an abortion doctor and an abortion nurse who was present. They ripped the baby out and threw it on the floor, and then what they did to it, I won't even mention. He said that every day. Oh, he also said that he performed 20 of those 146 abortions that he participated in. 20 of them were done in mainline abortion facilities, places like Planned Parenthood facilities. 20 of them. Now, how could you can you imagine doing a ritualistic, satanic abortion with, the candles and the symbols that they use, for their satanic, worships? Can you imagine doing that inside a modern abortion clinic? Could you do it unnoticed? Well, obviously not. How could you have done it? Because people there participated in it. Abortion doctors and nurses. He said that quote, a lot of the people that work at those places are witches or Satanists. So you get a lot of the people there willing to participate in the satanic event, close quote. And he also says that there's a black mass service done every day. There are numbers of these groups all around the country. Black mass service is done every day, and that at these services, usually done at midnight. Usually they end at, I think that all the ritualistic sacrifices are made, I think at 3 a.m., which is the devil's hour. Anyways, every night they dedicate all the babies that were aborted that day to Satan. So the Satanists certainly believe and the devil. And as a matter of fact, Satanism is on the rise. Let's see if I can find the one from. I think there's one. There's a group that. There's been a host of black masses that have been done recently, starting in 2014 in Oklahoma City and in Harvard. Although the one in Harvard was thwarted. They're originally going to have one at Harvard, and the president of the university issued a statement allowing it in the name of freedom of expression. We're going to allow. Did I forget to even mention what we're talking about is a black mass? They were going to allow a public black mass. Now, a black mass is basically the rejection of everything that's done in a normal Catholic mass. Often enough, there's an unbaptism where somebody they cast out the Holy Spirit from a person supposedly. Often enough, they desecrate a communion wafer. There are conflicting stories about whether or not at some of these black masses they have communion wafers that they simply buy online and that are unconsecrated, or whether or not they've actually been successful in stealing a consecrated wafer host from an actual Catholic mass. But they do horrible things to desecrate communion hosts and so on and so forth. And they were going to hold one of these spectacles at Harvard. Well, an outcry arose. The president of the university was met with a petition that had 60,000 signatures. 2,000 people gathered in a publicistic procession. During that particular day when this black mass was supposed to happen, there was breaking news. First it was canceled from its location where it was to take place on campus. Supposedly it was being then moved to a local bar. Then negotiations apparently with the bar fell through, and later that same night it was announced that it was postponed indefinitely, although there were stories that the black mass actually took place at an undisclosed location in secret as opposed to being in public. But nevertheless, that was 2014. Well, in 2014, there was, in fact, a public black mass that did take place, and that took place in Oklahoma City. And it was the subject of a documentary piece on ABC's Nightline. And the reporter was a fellow by the name of Byron Pitts. And he went and interviewed this particular gentleman, I won't mention his name, who called himself a pope of Satanism. And on this particular segment, I think it was about a 15, 20-minute segment, they showed actual footage from the black mass that they did in Oklahoma City in the Civic Center. They showed footage 4 different times. They actually showed people stomping on a wafer. Actually showed this on TV. If it was a consecrated host, they're stomping on God. And we're broadcasting that on TV. We're giving these people airtime. And this is going on in our society. And why? Because they didn't believe it was real. There's no reality to this. The spirit world is not real. There is no life after death. There was no Christ who lived and died and rose from the dead. None of that is real. Therefore, what's the worry? Anyways, by the way, this Pope, he's a convicted sex offender, which they did reveal on the show. But he was cast in somewhat of a favorable light because of the things that he said. They included a clip where he was saying, in regard to people who object to what he does, he said, quote, they can have whatever thoughts they want to have, sir. So he's respectful, this Pope of Satanism. He's respectful to the reporter, and he believes in other people being allowed their freedom of expression. Well, isn't that nice? He's a good guy. He's a benevolent soul, just like the devil on the program. Now, also, the reporter happened to interview the Archbishop of Oklahoma City, Paul Coakley, And at one point, Archbishop Coakley talked about the fact that, there's a problem with this because there is, quote, real danger involved. The powers they are invoking are real, close quote. The Archbishop is trying to tell the reporter and everybody in the audience, this is not just made up stuff. This is real. The reporter then responded, well, or isn't this about freedom of religion, close quote. Isn't that all we're worried about? Isn't this just freedom of religion? Freedom of religion. So we just, we let them believe what they want to believe. We let you believe what you want to believe. Everybody just can be free. What's the harm? What's the problem? So in other words, there is no difference between a satanic cult and the Catholic Church. There is no difference between a group that worships evil unlimited and a group that worships love unlimited. Why? Why can we put them in any kind of equivalent terms? Only because it's not real. We're not afraid it's real. There's nothing to see here, nothing to be afraid of. The Archbishop responds that basically this is about hate speech. I have witnessed demonic possessions, he said. Quote, I have witnessed demonic possessions, he said. Pitts, the reporter, that sounds like stuff in the movies like The Exorcist. Archbishop Oakley. The Exorcist was based upon a true story. Satanic influences are real. Pitts. Oh, come on. And when Pitts said that, there was derision and scorn in his mouth. And now we see clearly the attitude of the reporter. None of this is real. Oh, come on. Oakley responds with a laugh. Being confronted with such disbelief, being confronted with the accusation, you're out of touch. He does laugh because he's now being put on the defensive. On the defensive. A reporter putting a bishop on the defensive because the bishop believes in the reality of the devil. But then Archbishop Oakley maintains, quote, I'm a priest. I've seen it, close quote. But it's falling on deaf ears. The reporter doesn't hear this. As I said, 4 times there's footage in this piece. 4 times there's footage shown from the actual Black Mass. At one point, they interview attendees. People have come out of curiosity, which is a very dangerous thing to do. They paid $20 for the privilege of risking exposure to real spiritual evil. At any rate, one of the responses from some of these attendees that they interviewed that was aired was a girl who said, in response to what she thought of this whole thing, she said, quote, it's okay. It's nothing to be worried about, close quote. They don't believe. And the show ends with Pitts saying, quote, it did remind us faith in America runs deep in a country where all are welcome, if not embraced. It's a religion like any other. Oh, it just happens to believe in evil and horror, destroying souls for all eternity. Nothing to fear here. It's just a matter of freedom of religion. That's what it is. The IRS has even recognized the Satanic Temple as a charitable group. It goes on and on. There are public black masses that have been held in Norfolk, Virginia, this year, last year, Houston, Texas, as well as in Ottawa. And it was, I think, it was the organizers in Ottawa, if I can find it, organizers in Ottawa, who said that basically that since 2016, the Ottawa group has burgeoned. We've had to put a moratorium on new chapters because we literally have too much growth right now, the organizer said. The Satanic Temple itself has grown. It's based, by the way, its home is in Salem, Massachusetts, if you care. In the last 6 years, become a global movement with more than 100,000 members and 18 official chapters, 18 in the United States. There's An after-school program, Satan After School, that has been accepted into schools in at least 9 major American cities. And this goes on and on. It's in the movies. It's in the schools. It's in public civic centers. It's on college campuses. It's on TV programs. It's here. It's there. It's everywhere. And it's not to be feared. And as a matter of fact, the devil's a benevolent guy. And, women are powerful because now they can agree of their own without being told by anybody, without having to be fearful of, of anything. If they want to decide to make a deal with the devil, at least they're doing it of their own choice. They're going to hell, but at least it's their own choice. No problem, because the devil isn't real. That business when, Paul talked about, putting on the armor of God and being on guard against the devil, fighting the devil, because our fight is with principalities and powers, not with flesh and blood. What did Paul know? He didn't know anything. This is not real. Well, this fellow that I mentioned before, Zachary King, he does think it's real. He thinks it's very real. And what's more, he had, I was looking for it, now I just found it. He has a heck of a conversion story. Apparently at one point he became disillusioned with the satanic group. He had been raised in a Baptist home, and he left the satanic group that he was with. And about 3 years after that, he was working a jewelry. I think it was in a mall. Anyways, some woman came up to him and told him, just kind of out of the blue, and told him the Blessed Mother wanted him in her army and gave him a miraculous medal. Now, where does that come from? You're just working in a kiosk, and some woman comes up. How does she know anything about this man? And tells him, oh, by the way, the Blessed Mother wants you. Not Uncle Sam wants you. This time the Blessed Mother wants you in her army, and gave him a miraculous medal. That just happened. Anyways, he says that when his fist closed on the miraculous medal, he says he found himself in a dark void with the woman who told him everything he had done and that it was, quote, of the devil, close quote. He's hearing the voice of this woman, or he's seeing this woman, but he's in a black void. As soon as his hand closed on the metal placed in his hand, his hand closes on it, and he finds himself transported into a black void. Was it real? Is it a private mystical experience? Is it real? Is it not? Can it be proven? No. But this is his story. Then he said, as soon as he realized the Blessed Mother was the Mother of God, quote, she showed up, close quote, he said. So apparently he had not seen her, but then as soon as he realized that the Blessed Mother, apparently, me didn't deserve that smile, close quote. What a beautiful, beautiful experience. A man who had been steeped in the vilest type of sin still garnered a smile from the Blessed Mother. Because while the devil is evil unlimited, Jesus and his mother are love unlimited. He said, quote, I knew I had not sold my soul when I was 13 because, he said, it was not his to sell. He said he immediately started going to Mass and, quote, at the consecration, I saw Jesus, close quote. Another time, so it might be proven, did it happen? But this is his story. Similarly, he heard of perpetual adoration, like at Marytown, where Father Szymanski used to live and work, where he could, quote, go and see Jesus anytime, close quote. And he was shocked that there was, quote, no line to get in, close quote. Can you imagine discovering all this? But Jesus, Eucharistic adoration, the Mass, having personal experiences with Jesus and his mother, and then you can go see him. You can go see Jesus anytime. Why isn't there a line to get in? Of course, that's how you would feel. He was received into the Catholic Church in 2008. He said the Blessed Mother told him, quote, "Your job is to help me end abortion," close quote. So he asked Jesus during adoration. He said, quote, "Your mother asked me to help her end abortion, but I don't know how," close quote. Mary appeared to him during adoration. Of course she did. And she told him, "Use what you know," close quote. That's his story. Is it true? I don't know. But he used to be a high wizard. Now he's a member of the Catholic Church. Paul has warned us about the devil and that we have to be on our guard. There's so much in our society and our culture that it's telling us not to be on our guard, nothing to fear, don't worry about it. Oh, come on. The devil's not real. But what if he is? What if he is? And it's not an if, really. It is a certainty. Unless you don't want to believe Christ, unless you don't want to believe he told the truth, unless you don't want to believe that he rose from the dead, unless you don't want to believe the saints in 2,000 years of Catholic tradition and teaching. So we do have to be on our guard. We do have to listen to St. Paul. We do have to put on the armor of God, which is the Word of God. And we have to do what we can to tell people, as Father Szymanski wanted to tell them, no, you do need to worry. The devil is a real entity, and he must be rejected. Now, I make this particular program on the eve of making a pilgrimage to a Marian apparition site. And as the story we just last told indicates, there is a connection between casting off the devil and following the advice of Mary. There is a connection between Mary and the devil where one is opposed to one another, where, the devil will strike at her feet and she will stomp on him, coming from passage in Genesis that is so commonly interpreted as referring to the Blessed Mother. There is a real connection there. And in the next program, perhaps, it's my thought at this point, to be doing a program more about our Blessed Mother. But for today, anyways, the program is one of a warning. And really, there's nothing to be afraid of. If we put our faith in Christ, there is nothing to be afraid of. We just have to be aware of these things. So that has been our program this time. We hope you found it somewhat enlightening. We hope we've shed some awareness on some facts you might not have known, some of the thoughts of these people that are making these movies and shaping our culture and our society today. So we hope that's been of interest. We hope you've enjoyed your time here. We hope you'll join us again. And until then, may God's best blessings be with all of you. God bless.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.